countries like Norway have been implementing projects for sustainability and better plastic waste management called deposit return systems. We learn about how this can be done here in the Philippines with Royal Norwegian Embassy in Manila Ambassador Christian Lyster and TOMRA Head of Public Affairs Asia, Annupa. Your Excellency, Annupa, thank you so much both for joining us here on The Final Word. I want to define first what is the deposit return system, which is part of the extended producer responsibility, which is now a law in the Philippines. Explain to us briefly, Annupa, what is the EPR?
Thank you. So EPR, as you've rightly said, has already been established as law for plastic management very recently in Philippines. And deposit return systems are one of the mechanisms of EPR. So EPR is essentially putting the responsibility on producers, relying on the polluter pays principle to essentially put the responsibility on them for collection and end-of-life management. Right?
And how does this work, the DRS?
So DRS is deposit return systems. The answer is in the name. Essentially, it's a very simple and elegant philosophy. Of course, you are mandated by a certain law, but you put a deposit on a beverage container when you're buying it. So essentially, you are buying the content, not the packaging. And you are returning, or you are incentivized to return the packaging back to a collection point, thereby allowing a circular process to the material.
All right. How much can a consumer take back or receive back if they return a bottle or a can?
It's not a straightforward answer. The deposit is set by certain science behind it. So in different countries, we have different deposit values. It should be high enough to motivate people to return it. And it should not be that high that it attracts fraud. And not that low that it's not incentivizing. So you kind of have to look at the purchase power and the market. So
it basically varies the model from country to country.
Absolutely.
And it has been so successful, Ambassador Lyster in Norway. How successful has it been in implementing the extended producer responsibility and the deposit return system?
It's been a great success, and I must say I grew up with the system. I've been taught from I was a little kid that we return our bottles, we return our cans, and in 2021 the return rate in Norway was 92.3%.
That's very high.
And it gives the bottles new life. And it's really circular because it can be used again and again and again. And you know what? Another good thing about the system is that it's almost self-financing. So basically in Norway in 2021, the producers only paid 5.4% through the EPR.
Yes.
5.4%. The other costs were covered by the system itself.
Yes.
So it works really well in Norway, and I believe that it could work here in the
Philippines. Why do you think, Ambassador, can it work here in the Philippines when in Norway your population is what? 5.5 million?
Yeah.
But here we are 110 million people. Why do you think it can work here? Why can that system work in the Philippines?
I think it can work in the Philippines because of the Filipino mentality. You are used to taking care of the materials, so this is another way of making sure that the materials will get new life.
And Annupa, do you think it can really work here in the Philippines? It's been successful in the Scandinavian countries.
Yes.
TOMRA is trying to promote it here in the Philippines. What do you think can make it work for government, for the private sector, and for the Filipino people?
So the short answer is that reuse is embedded in the culture. So we just have to promote it to a scale where then it becomes a meaningful system in terms of volumes, in terms of attracting investment, in terms of really achieving those high ambitious environmental goals. So the philosophy exists within us already. We need to shape it with the law. That's why it will work. What are the benefits of it? So the benefits are huge. We are talking about big environmental goals like carbon emission reduction. You know, we have a huge challenge of marine litter prevention right now. Oceans have no boundaries. But what we are right now is being seen as a source of littering the ocean. And what we have seen is that deposit systems can address 30 to 35% of that marine litter. And of course, there are other benefits I can go on talking about.
A lot of benefits, especially for the Filipino people in the medium to long term. And Ambassador, this morning, the Norwegian Embassy, together with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, had a very productive workshop to educate and aware more stakeholders about the deposit return system. From your sense, Ambassador, how soon can this initiative be implemented in the Philippines?
That's a very good question. I think I would like to congratulate the Filipino government by actually getting the EPR law in place. So the framework is there. This is part of this framework. It's an EPR mechanism. And I think the most important thing is to get the framework and the rules right to begin with. So I would guess that it's important to have in place a feasibility study to make sure that this model can work here in the Philippines. Because you cannot take exactly the same system we have in Norway and just put it here in the Philippines. You have to make it the Filipino way. But by thinking ahead, I actually think that it's possible to get it in place within some years. Absolutely. If there's a will and if you have the right legislation and guidelines in place, it's possible.
The Ambassador Annupa mentioned about legislation. The EPR law has been in place now for just 10 months,
Yes.
but the deposit return system is not part of it. Can the DRS eventually be integrated into the Philippine EPR law?
Rico, it's a very good question. It does not need to be integrated. It is a regulation that will be a subset of the law. So you have already started the journey. You have the roadmap set in place. You just have to have now a specific regulation for DRS that can be done through a process that the ambassador just kind of alluded to.
You mentioned as well the term investment. Some
Yes.
people think that, to get into extended producer responsibility or DRS can be a large investment. What kind of investment is involved here? Is it an investment from TOMRA, from Norway, official development assistance, private sector development, PPP?
So let me come back to the original point where we started. It is an extended producer responsibility framework. So essentially at the heart of it, EPR is a financing tool. The government does not need to spend money on it. They need to spend time to build a robust framework. The system itself is funded through EPR, and then there are revenue streams that support the system to keep the cost of the system down. I cannot tell you exactly what this system setup will cost. It will be covered through EPR, but there are ways to make it very effective. It does not have to be a copy-paste model of other systems in the world.
And finally, Ambassador, will you be discussing this particular initiative, the deposit return system, with President Marcos so it could be pushed forward sooner rather than later?
If I get the chance, I will definitely mention this scheme.
Thank you so much to both of you for joining us on The Final Word. Norwegian Ambassador Christian Lyster and Annupa Ahi, Head of Public Affairs Asia from TOMRA.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.